Here's the full text of President Trump's executive order on immigration, released by the White House Monday. Executive Order. Protecting the nation from foreign terrorist entry into the United States. By the authority vested in me as President by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, including the Immigration and Nationality Act, INA, 8 U.S.C. 1101 etc., and Section 301 of Title III, United States Code, and to protect the nation from terrorist activities by foreign nationals admitted to the United States, it is hereby ordered as follows. Section 1. Policy and Purpose. A. It is the policy of the United States to protect its citizens from terrorist attacks, including those committed by foreign nationals. The screening and vetting protocols and procedures associated with the visa issuance process and the United States Refugee Admissions Program, USRAP, play a crucial role in detecting foreign nationals who may commit, aid, or support acts of terrorism and in preventing those individuals from entering the United States. It is therefore the policy of the United States to improve the screening and vetting protocols and procedures associated with the visa issuance process and the USRAP. B. On January 27, 2017, to implement this policy, I issued Executive Order 13769, protecting the nation from foreign terrorist entry into the United States. I, among other actions, Executive Order 13769 suspended for 90 days the entry of certain aliens from 7 countries, Iran, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen. These are countries that had already been identified as presenting heightened concerns about terrorism and travel to the United States. Specifically, the suspension applied to countries referred to in, or designated under, Section 217A, 12, of the INA, 8 U.S.C. 1187A, 12, in which Congress restricted use of the visa waiver program for nationals of, and aliens recently present in, a. Iraq or Syria, b. any country designated by the Secretary of State as a state sponsor of terrorism, currently Iran, Syria, and Sudan, and c. any other country designated as a country of concern by the Secretary of Homeland Security, in consultation with the Secretary of State and the Director of National Intelligence. In 2016, the Secretary of Homeland Security designated Libya, Somalia, and Yemen as additional countries of concern for travel purposes, based on consideration of 3 statutory factors related to terrorism and national security, i. whether the presence of an alien in the country or area increases the likelihood that the alien is a credible threat to the national security of the United States, 2. whether a foreign terrorist organization has a significant presence in the country or area, and 3. whether the country or area is a safe haven for terrorists. 8 U.S.C. 1187A, 12d2. Additionally, members of Congress have expressed concerns about screening and vetting procedures following recent terrorist attacks in this country and in Europe. 2. In ordering the temporary suspension of entry described in subsection B.I. of this section, I exercise my authority under Article 2 of the Constitution and under Section 212F of the INA, which provides in relevant part, whenever the President finds that the entry of any aliens or of any class of aliens into the United States would be detrimental to the interests of the United States, he may by proclamation, and for such period as he shall deem necessary, suspend the entry of all aliens or any class of aliens as immigrants or non-immigrants, or impose on the entry of aliens any restrictions he may deem to be appropriate. 8 U.S.C. 1182F. Under these authorities, I determined that, for a brief period of 90 days, while existing screening and vetting procedures were under review, the entry into the United States of certain aliens from the 7 identified countries, each afflicted by terrorism in a manner that compromised the ability of the United States to rely on normal decision-making procedures about travel to the United States, would be detrimental to the interests of the United States. Nonetheless, I permitted the Secretary of State and the Secretary of Homeland Security to grant case-by-case waivers when they determined that it was in the national interest to do so. 3. Executive Order 13769 also suspended the User app for 120 days. Terrorist groups have sought to infiltrate several nations through refugee programs. Accordingly, I temporarily suspended the User app pending a review of our procedures for screening and vetting refugees. Nonetheless, I permitted the Secretary of State and the Secretary of Homeland Security to jointly grant case-by-case waivers when they determined that it was in the national interest to do so. 4. Executive Order 13769 did not provide a basis for discriminating for or against members of any particular religion. While that order allowed for prioritization of refugee claims from members of persecuted religious minority groups, that priority applied to refugees from every nation, including those in which Islam is a minority religion, and it applied to minority sects within the religion. That order was not motivated by animus toward any religion, but was instead intended to protect the ability of religious minorities, whoever they are and wherever they reside, to avail themselves of the User app in light of their particular challenges and circumstances. C. The implementation of Executive Order 13769 has been delayed by litigation. Most significantly, enforcement of critical provisions of that order has been temporarily halted by court orders that apply nationwide and extend even to foreign nationals with no prior or substantial connection to the United States. On February 9, 2017, the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit declined to stay or narrow one such order pending the outcome of further judicial proceedings, while noting that the political branches are far better equipped to make appropriate distinctions about who should be covered by a suspension of entry or of refugee admissions. D. Nationals from the countries previously identified under Section 217A, 12. Of the ANA warrant additional scrutiny in connection with our immigration policies because the conditions in these countries present heightened threats. Each of these countries is a state sponsor of terrorism, has been significantly compromised by terrorist organizations, or contains active conflict zones. Any of these circumstances diminishes the foreign government's willingness or ability to share or validate important information about individuals seeking to travel to the United States. Moreover, the significant presence in each of these countries of terrorist organizations, their members, and others exposed to those organizations increases the chance that conditions will be exploited to enable terrorist operatives or sympathizers to travel to the United States. Finally, once foreign nationals from these countries are admitted to the United States, it is often difficult to remove them, because many of these countries typically delay issuing, or refuse to issue, travel documents. The following are brief descriptions, taken in part from the Department of State's Country Reports on Terrorism 2015, June 2016, of some of the conditions in 6 of the previously designated countries that demonstrate why their nationals continue to present heightened risks to the security of the United States. Iran. Iran has been designated as a state sponsor of terrorism since 1984 and continues to support various terrorist groups, including Hezbollah, Hamas, and terrorist groups in Iraq. Iran has also been linked to support for al-Qaeda and has permitted al-Qaeda to transport funds and fighters through Iran to Syria and South Asia. Iran does not cooperate with the United States in counterterrorism efforts. 2. Libya. Libya is an active combat zone, with hostilities between the internationally recognized government and its rivals. In many parts of the country, security and law enforcement functions are provided by armed militias rather than state institutions. Violent extremist groups, including the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, ISIS, have exploited these conditions to expand their presence in the country. The Libyan government provides some cooperation with the United States counterterrorism efforts, but it is unable to secure thousands of miles of its land and maritime borders, enabling the illicit flow of weapons, migrants, and foreign terrorist fighters. The United States Embassy in Libya suspended its operations in 2014. 3. Somalia. Portions of Somalia have been terrorist safe havens. Al-Shabaab, an al-Qaeda-affiliated terrorist group, has operated in the country for years and continues to plan and mount operations within Somalia and in neighboring countries. Somalia has porous borders, and most countries do not recognize Somali identity documents. The Somali government cooperates with the United States in some counter-terrorism operations but does not have the capacity to sustain military pressure on or to investigate suspected terrorists. 4. Sudan. Sudan has been designated as a state sponsor of terrorism since 1993 because of its support for international terrorist groups, including Hezbollah and Hamas. Historically, Sudan provided safe havens for al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups to meet and train. Although Sudan's support to al-Qaeda has ceased and it provides some cooperation with the United States counter-terrorism efforts, elements of core al-Qaeda and ISIS-linked terrorist groups remain active in the country. Syria. Syria has been designated as a state sponsor of terrorism since 1979. The Syrian government is engaged in an ongoing military conflict against ISIS and others for control of portions of the country. At the same time, Syria continues to support other terrorist groups.